Welcome to a new time. Welcome to a new era.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
Feel the wrath of the Python. You shall feel the wrath of Rocky Maivia. This is where the power lies.
And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
I got a 66 and 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me and he's not even going to try.
It's time to step into the squared circle and get it done.
Welcome everyone to Legends and Champions, the UK's premier wrestling podcast on old school wrestling. Andy here coming to you, as I said, from the United Kingdom on Celebrate Wrestling, and we've got a good one coming up for you. This is all about Die, Rocky, Die, and we're going to be talking about that infamous promo and the heel turn of The Rock. This is part 1 of 3. We're going to be covering it throughout the year, so you're going to have to stay tuned.
Die, Rocky, die. That's the gratitude I get from you pieces of crap for all my blood, my sweat, and my tears. You know, hey, this isn't about the color of my skin. This is about respect. I became the youngest Intercontinental Champion in WWF history. And what did it get me? In arenas across the country, I heard chants of Rocky sucks. Well, Rocky Maivia is a lot of things, but sucks isn't one of them. You know, hey, there's not a black thing, it's not a white thing, and hey, let's talk about a racist faction. You want to talk about a group that's prejudiced? Let's talk about the DOA. The DOA epitomizes racism. But hey, you know what? The hell with the DOA. I want to make one point to all you jackass fans out there. Rocky Maivia and the new nation of domination lives, breathes, and dies respect. And we will earn respect by any means necessary.
All right, we are back with Legends coming to you from the UK. Andy here, joined as always by Stefan. I said at the top of the show, I'm full of cold. So if I sneeze or sniff or go quiet, then you might just have to listen to Stefan's glorious tones for however long we do this for. Stefan, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Sorry to hear that you're not feeling 100%. But yeah, I'm really excited for this show. This is we discussed this one over the last sort of few weeks about doing this, and yeah, this is going to be quite a good one. This one, so I'm looking forward to getting into it.
All right, so this one, as we've said, is called Die, Rocky, Die. And what we're going to be doing is touching on the beginning of Rock's journey. Now, we've just come off a 3-hour, 3-part Triple H special, and we're going to do something similar, but not straight away. So you're going to get part 1 now, and then when we feel like it, we'll do part 2. And then when we feel like it, we'll do part 3. And if there's a part 4, we'll do that too. We may even do when The Rock goes to the movies. Who knows? Maybe we'll do we'll do a rip-off if I've seen a movie.
I'm sure The Rock's Hollywood thing's going to come into play at some point.
Well, it has to, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to. I mean, we go back to 1996 at the Survivor Series. It was the debut of The Rock, Rocky Maivia, the blue chipper, the son of Peter Maivia, the son of Rocky Johnson, the grandson of Peter Maivia. Told you I'm not feeling right. Early impressions of this guy, what were they?
That's a really interesting question, because I remember when I watched Survivor Series 1996. I mean, you just see this, this new guy with a little bit of charisma. Didn't really capture my attention. I mean, literally, it's strange when you think about it now that this guy would go on to be not only one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling, but one of the biggest stars in the world, as he is now.
I would stop you there. He's not. He is the most powerful man in professional wrestling.
Well, yeah, you can add that to the resume as well. Absolutely. But there was nothing really interesting about him when he arrived. I mean, it was just this new guy on screen at 1996 Survivor Series. Was impressed by his athleticism. Absolutely, 100%. But yeah, there was nothing there that really stood out about him at the time, which is, as we're going to dive into as we go along.
Exactly. I mean, he found success in the USWA as Flex Kavanagh before he went into the WWE. And I think what really got to me about Rocky Maivia was how much they put a rocket up his arse right from the beginning. Right? Because if you think about it, it wasn't too long into the run that he was facing off against Hunter Hearst Helmsley for the Intercontinental Championship on Raw Thursday and won it. And it seemed to be that maybe it all was too fast. He was one of, Vince's favorites. He was one of Vince's chosen one, if you will, to lead it. And what we know about the WWE and the WWE audience is if something is shoved down their throat too much, it instantly turns them, right?
John Cena being a great example of that. Yeah,
totally. But I mean, you've got to look at some of these key markets that they've got. So if you look at Chicago, who don't hold anything back, you look at the New York crowd, who don't hold anything back, right? The minute you don't have them on side, you are going to know about it, and they knew about it pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be fair, I can see why Vince loved him and wanted, to really, really push him. Yeah, I think maybe it could have been too early, but, if you look at the, no pun intended, but the bloodline that he comes from, his father, grandfather, his grandmother, his uncles, cousins, you look at the family that, the lineage there, you would say he was destined for greatness. You can understand why Vince would be like, oh, this guy, can make me a lot of money. This guy could be the next big star. But yeah, it just, I think it was, people were getting, I think, sick of seeing this, big grin guy who's, acted very generic as a super face. And yeah, I think it was just at a point where, people were just kind of like, this guy's too nice. He smiles too much. And I think, we don't like that.
I think you've also got to remember the time. So this is 1996, right? This is Monday Night War era. It's a few months following the Hogan heel turn at Bash of the Beach, the formation of the NWO, which we know would take WCW to new heights. The audience is changing. And Vince, at this point in the WWF, and we've talked about this before, having embraced this new, more adult way of producing content and producing wrestling. So they still had these cartoony characters. They still had Duke the Dumpster Drosy. They still had, they didn't have Bashy Booger at that time, but they still had things like, Owen R. Shyster around that sort of era. Mantar, who was seen for one thing and never came back again. So they hadn't quite adapted, but they were in this transition period because obviously you had Mankind coming in, that was Mick Foley playing that really dark and broody, but still, in my opinion, very cartoonish character, over the top, right? And the crowd just didn't get to it. Now, what I will say is I've never seen a reaction quite like the crowd gave, and I don't think we're going to see it again, because to suddenly see these posters coming up with Die Rocky Die all across the audience, the crowd chanting Die Rocky Die. I mean, this was Dominic Mysterio heat before Dominic Mysterio was even conceived, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really was, and it's really interesting. This is where I kind of think this is one of the things that I think Vince McMahon lost sight of as the years went by, especially in the later years, was don't underestimate the power of your audience, because the power of your audience can literally not only change the course of a wrestler's career, but can actually help carve the path of a wrestler's career. And it's the same thing if you look at Austin 316. If it wasn't for the fact, although Austin delivered that promo after winning at the end of King of the Ring in 96 of the same year, if it wasn't for the fact that the fans immediately jumped up on that and then literally appeared the next Raw with Austin 316 t-shirts and signs and things like that, you know, that may never have took off. And again, Vince, you know, again, it was ended up being a big money spin for him. And this is where I think WWE went wrong under Vince in the later years, when people were getting very sick and tired with how stale the product was because fans were always vocal what they wanted and who they were behind. And if Vince didn't, you know, as you quoted a few moments ago, lit a rocket up some of those asses, then, you know, people got more frustrated. And, you know, we know there's been talent, that there's been talent in WWE that have really had something special and really deserved a push that never got it. And we were stripped of seeing what their careers could have been and what their paths could have been. So we were very fortunate that the fact that you know, Vince listened to the fans, The Rock listened to the fans, and, you know, went ahead and went against the grain and thought, do you know what, let's try something. And that promo he delivered was exceptional.
Well,
and iconic.
Vince could turn around and say he did it for The Rock.
Yeah, just like Naomi did it for Bianca.
No.
Off air. Let's just say we've reacted off air to that meme that's been circulating the social media, and you kind of chuckle, but at the same time shake your head. It's just one of those, isn't it?
I had a little bit of nightmares after I saw that in the host chat the other day. It was a bit. All right, so Die Rocky Die. Rocky gets injured, comes back, embraces it, does that legendary promo, goes heel. Meteoric.
Yeah.
Why with The Rock changing to a heel, coming up with the Rock name, doing this whole third person character thing, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, you know, again, if you put it on paper, it shouldn't have worked. It should not have worked. So why did it?
I think there's also an element, there's this side element here, which I think which was a catalyst, and it was a perfect marriage. You had the stuff going on with the Nation of Domination. You had Farouk as the leader, who, you know, was one of their big issues that they would claim was that WWE was all about the Great White Hope. It was all about, you know, almost like a racism undertone of, you know, opportunities not given to, you know, African Americans and talent, and, you know, that there was this big problem with guys like them, etc. Then you had The Rock, who was being booed and people were chanting literally "Die Rocky Die," and I think having that there on the side and then turning The Rock there, and then with the things he said in his promo, you know, about how ungrateful the fans were, the gratitude he gets, you know, for his blood, sweat and tears, and, you know, and then turn around and saying the one thing The Rock certainly doesn't do is suck, and then you put him with the Nation, because kind of what he's aggrieved by kind of in some ways fits into what the Nation were aggrieved by. So putting him there, having then his arrogance as The Rock developed over a little bit of time, the arrogance of The Rock, thinking he was the best, overthrowing Farouk, and all that, to then him becoming the leader of the Nation. It all just fit perfectly step by step. It was the perfect marriage, and it was the perfect platform for Dwayne to really make the most of this new Rock character that he brought, this new persona. And it just literally just went from strength to strength. But as much as people booed him, when he had joined the Nation and he had turned heel and people could really see what he could do, people then started to get on board with that. And that's where the love for The Rock really grew, even as a heel. And people appreciated him more, were entertained by him more. And, you know, then you throw in the rivalry with DX, which actually one of my favourite skits has always been when DX dressed as the Nation and that whole thing. It, you know, and then that's where we have that. We spoke in the past about the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, the parallel careers that they have. This is kind of where then Triple H and The Rock kind of have theirs, because they both then go into the Intercontinental Championship picture together. Then obviously Austin then comes into that as well. And then the three of them, obviously Rock and Austin, just before Triple H did, then became main event superstars. So it was all about timing was perfect. The Rock having the belief in himself that he could pull this off. Vince, fair play, we give credit where credit's due on the few occasions where he's actually gone, do you know what? Yeah, I'll get on board with what you want to do. I give you my blessing. I'll support you the whole way. And that was that. So yeah, it was just perfect.
I mean, we're going to do an episode on the Nation in the future. We're going to go into detail on that. The rivalry, you've touched on it there, between Marvin the Martian and The Rock. I mean, of course, he's dropped the Marvin the Martian gimmick by now. Farouk, Ron Simmons, and Rocky Maivia. How pivotal was that in the development of the Rock character?
Absolutely crucial. I mean, again, this is something, because obviously, you know, whether you liked him or hated him, or, you know, whether you question the position that a guy like Ron Simmons as Farouk was in. Again, you know, we discussed in the past about, you know, he could have potentially have become a main eventer like he had become in WCW. And I think in some ways having a guy like Ron Simmons around, who had, you know, was a veteran, but, you know, heading into his veteran years more so at that stage, having him almost, I think, kind of take The Rock under his wing a little bit. He had that support of having the guys around him. And you kind of, in a way, give The Rock henchmen. You take the leader out, he took Farouk out and had the rest of the Nation turn on him, and it puts The Rock in the position of power within the Nation. And it then elevates his character ever so slightly more into a leadership position. And the ball is then with him, and then he picks it up and he runs with it. We spoke on the Triple H show about when Shawn had retired after WrestleMania 14, and, you know, Triple H picked the ball up with DX and ran with it, recruited the Outlaws and X-Pac and that. It's just these things where timing is everything, and timing is perfect. The circumstances are perfect. The platform is perfect. And it's just one of those things which, you know, only ever happens ever so often.
Once in a blue moon.
Yeah, where everything just fits perfectly. And, you know, and that's what happened.
I mean, I guess if you think about it, it's kind of, you know, we talked earlier on about 96 being the era of Hogan and the NWO and Bash at the Beach. By the time this happens, you know, we're talking more mid to late 97, possibly early 98. You know, we are full Attitude Era at this point. Yeah. You know, we're full. We are full in. You know, we're heading to WrestleMania 14. We're heading to Austin versus Michaels for the world title, where Michaels would go, as you've just referenced. And we're heading for this pinnacle where the landscape of the entire industry completely changed. Because, you know, we've gone through 80 odd weeks of the WWF being kicked by Bischoff. Now we're switching gears, and it's now the WWE running it. And who's at the forefront of that but The Rock? Yeah. Weird. And what you never saw again after that was those Die Rocky Die posters.
No, absolutely. And there was no reason for them either. You know, it was, as you said, it was very pivotal, because if you look at, you know, 1998, they're into their first year where, you know, there's, you've got no more Hogan. Hogan and the NWO are killing it in WCW. They've taken that to a new level. WWE have lost Bret Hart. You know, they lost a lot of their original top guys. Shawn Michaels, was going into retirement after WrestleMania, so early 1998. So those positions of the next big stars needed to be filled. I mean, yes, we still had Undertaker, reinventing himself and being as great as he always has been as a mainstay. He was still growing. Mankind was not quite a main eventer, but he was getting a lot of attention. I mean, I still go back to In Your House Mind Games in '96. The championship match he had with Shawn Michaels is a very highly underrated match. Totally. I love watching that match just for the simple fact you actually see Shawn Michaels, how frustrated he is with this opponent that he just cannot take out. He cannot take down until he, finally does. And I actually think that match also was the making of Mick Foley's Mankind character in the WWE. There was that position there where they needed top stars. So you kind of look at the younger blood. Again, as I said with Triple H was in that position, having DX to himself now that Shawn had gone. The Rock in the Nation. I think it was a really interesting addition having Owen Hart in there. But if you look at, again in 1998, King of the Ring, this was almost kind of becoming a thing because we had Austin win King of the Ring in 96. He then gets a major push. We had Triple H win the 97 King of the Ring, and he kind of starts getting a bit of a push. At least becomes the leader of DX. Then you put The Rock in King of the Ring in 98 against, and he defeats Ken Shamrock, who he was feuding with at the time as well. So there was a lot of focus into it. Yeah, it just culminates into.
But it all culminates the Survivor Series.
Yeah,
everything for The Rock seems to happen at Survivor Series. So if you think 96, the debut, you think 97, overshadowed by Bret in Montreal, but you go to 98. And they do Mind Game. They do Survivor Series Endgame or whatever it's called, which is the championship tournament.
Games tournament, yeah.
Deadly Games tournament.
Yeah.
Where what happens?
Well, he goes in as a face. Most importantly, he goes in as a face. And, obviously there's a lot of shenanigans. There's, Taker, I think, gets disqualified in his match, and it ends up with him and Mankind. Yeah. So the main event, the final match against Mankind, he puts Mankind in the sharpshooter, reminiscent of the year before, with Shawn Michaels putting Bret in there, and the same thing happens, which doesn't get talked about. Vince screws Mankind this time, calls for the bell, and then there's this embrace. The Rock's won the championship, and he becomes the corporate champion and turns heel again. And this time, he's got the evil Vince McMahon. He's got Shane McMahon and all of their entourage and the corporation behind him.
He's got that, exactly. But I think one thing about The Rock, which always kind of made me go, huh? He had what I call Paul White syndrome. Do you know what that means? Do you know what Paul White syndrome is?
Go on. Explain it, because the listeners are not going to understand.
The listeners won't know what it is. It's a new thing I've created called the Paul White syndrome. It's called PWS. And what it is not knowing if you're a face or a heel. Because Rock, from 1 minute to the next, even to this day, you don't know if he's face or heel. Now, that is a testament to the time that we're in. All right? Even back in 1998. Yeah. But the one thing I think potentially hurt Rocky back at the beginning was this clarification. Am I a good guy or am I a bad guy? I was a good guy on Raw, but I'm a bad guy on SmackDown. Oh, I'm a good guy again on Monday Night Raw. Oh, I'm a bad guy on SmackDown. Oh, bugger it. We're going to swatch it all around now. I'm going to be a bad guy on Raw, but I'm going to be a good guy on SmackDown.
But have you seen what you've just done?
Pay-per-view.
You see what you've just done, though?
Well,
what did The Rock say in the press conference after the Elimination Chamber when Cena turned heel? The Rock said the final boss is neither a face nor heel. He's whoever he is. Some things never change.
But back in 97, 98, he wasn't the final boss. He was the level 1 exit boss.
Exactly. But the core thing still remains. He's he's still could be either or both whenever he wants to switch it. He's whatever you want him to be. And
I don't want him to be anything. I don't want him to be anything. I just want his money. and his charisma. And the ability to go, let me have a chee-hoo. Really decent.
Don't do that again, Mandy.
Why?
But yeah, seriously though, it was all about platforms and take it. And I think being the corporate champion, that was the pinnacle. That was, you're our guy. Not only are we putting you in that prime position of being our guy, you carry the company when you carry our championship.
I think it might.
You've got Vince and that beside you on TV as well.
I think by this point, he had earned enough spots to be given it. And, they want to go in a different direction. They want to change it. You are now setting up the feuds with Austin. You are now going back to the feud with Triple H. You're now putting him in feud with The Undertaker. You've got this storyline with Mick Foley and Mankind. You've got this new, and I hate using these two words because it was such a terrible era in the WWF, but you've got this new generation of talent. And now you're beginning to see the defections from WCW coming over. So now you've got The Rock going up against the likes of Dean Malenko. You've got The Rock going up against the likes of the crippler Chris Benoit, against Eddie Guerrero, against Perry Saturn. All right, squash matches for Perry Saturn, but you've got this new talent coming in, and you've got Rock is the focal point. And the one thing you could always say about Rock was the ability to cut a promo, to turn a crowd from being quite passive, and not really into it, to being very, very vocal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that is the sign of a good entertainer more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why he's renowned for being so. And if you look at it's that old saying, isn't it? It's that power to build someone up, and then you hit that line that just knocks them straight down. I mean, you listed like the Radicals, the guys that came over from WCW. That was in 2000. But if you look at the year 1999 beforehand, Chris Jericho debuted, and who did he debut with? The Rock. And The Rock absolutely took him straight down with his promo.
But two of the best promo men, two of the best stick men in the business, whether you love Jericho or whether you hate Jericho for what he is, they are, and he is, one of the best stick men. You give him the mic,
he proved it.
You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean he proved it during his rivalry with Benoit. Jericho's rivalry with Benoit. He was the master on the mic. And then if you look at, we're touching it later on in a later show, but I'll just touching it slightly here. If you look at when we'd had the takeover of WCW and we had The Rock as WCW champion and his rivalry with a newly heel Chris Jericho, where he was developing, Jericho and The Rock on the mic going at it, like Jericho had come on leaps and bounds since, and you could tell he had learned a trick or two from The Rock, and he developed. So what you say is absolutely correct. They did and have been two of the absolute best on the mic in the business. Absolutely, 100%.
We will be doing, I keep saying it, we will be doing a Jericho episode, but this Jericho episode will be different because it will be following this sort of format. We'll be looking at some of the WCW run, some of the WWF run, and I can't believe I'm saying this, we'll be doing some of the AEW run as well, because you can't take that away from Jericho. Jericho admits in the first book, though, that first year in the WWF sucked, and he was on the cusp of being fired, and he needed The Rock. I think, going back to what we're talking about in terms of Die Rocky Die, he is possibly the one performer, and I take Cena out of this, where he's had a bit of an up and down, curvy-worthy career. Do you know what I mean? He's been relatively free of injury, which has been amazing. He had the first injury when he first came in back in 96. But really, he's not had anything, touch wood, too serious. But he was the first one to break out. He was the first one to transition into other forms of entertainment. And we will touch on that in another episode. But in this era, this 96 through to now, before we break away, how do you define Rock? Where is he in terms of the if you want to take the video game analogy, the level 1 exit to the final boss. Where is he now?
Quickly, sort of, as you said about the movies being the first guy. I mean, he was the first guy since Hogan that dived into movies. You know, had movies being put into movies.
Hang on, we don't talk about Hogan's movies. They weren't movies. They were bad.
They were bad, but I've got childhood. My childhood, I loved them as a kid. So I've got a little soft spot for them. But yeah, they were dreadful. No holds barred. Oh my god, how terrible was that? But still great when you're a kid. But yeah, he was in a. Now he is. I mean, he's director of the board of the company that owns WWE. I mean, you talk about full circle. You know, you look at Triple H, where we discussed Triple H, he's the COO of WWE. He's running things, but The Rock is technically Triple H's boss, which...
He's not technically. He's not technically.
He is. But you look at, you know, we touched on, and we'll probably go back into it even deeper in a later episode, his rivalry with Triple H, and we talk about the parallels of their careers. I mean, both of them have just come full circle. They both had their issues when they started in WWE, whereas we know, you know, Triple H got into a lot of trouble over the whole click thing at the house show. And we know he had his punishment.
Which I do think was unjustified, just to point out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you look at, and this is one of the things why I'm so happy with the position WWE are in now, because two of the top guys, two guys I grew up, all right, fair enough, they didn't become big stars until I had just become an adult, but, you know, I was still in my, you know, my teens when they were, you know, still green, as it were, in WWE. To see these two at the very top of their profession out of the ring is absolutely incredible. And I don't think you'll ever see anything like that ever again.
No,
I really don't.
I think you're right. I think we're in a very unique period.
Yeah.
Now.
And that's without looking at Shawn Michaels running NXT.
No, I get it.
It's amazing.
It's a very unique time, isn't it? Because, you know, for the first time in history, the WWE is not under McMahon control, as it hasn't been for a couple of years. And in fairness, as much as I remember you and I being quite naysayers about, oh, it's going to be sold to a corporate and it's, you know, they're not going to be involved. The best thing that ever happened to that company was to get the McMahons out, and to give it some direction, and to give Triple H the book. Let's not lie there.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a testament to those workers and to guys like the Dead Man and to guys like Cena and Austin, because without them, this company wouldn't be where they are now, right? It is down to them. And you will never again see a performer on the board of directors running a multi-million-dollar company that, let's face it, doesn't just run WWE. He runs UFC and this new Saudi Arabian boxing league they've announced. Yeah, Rock runs it. He runs the whole trifecta, right?
Yeah.
Never thought you would see that again.
No. And if you look at last year, before we go to our break, if you look at last year in the build-up to WrestleMania 40, when it looked like it was going to be Rock and Roman and everyone was absolutely seething that The Rock had taken Cody's spot away, to fast forward 1 year to the lead up to this WrestleMania, now we've had the Cena heel turn and seen what The Rock is potentially building. Everyone's on that train now. Everyone has jumped on that bandwagon now and just actually thought, oh, yeah, we're starting to understand what The Rock's doing now. When we talk about the small minor details of the past few years or number of years, and you think, oh, my God, you know, they were planning this way back then. Now I see it because these things are aligning. It's insane.
I think you're giving them far too much credit that they planned it. I don't think they did.
I just think that they planted some seeds and thought, do you know what? We'll plant these seeds, and if we're in a position to make certain things happen down the line, people will start remembering these little details. And I just think, you know, as I say, it's cinema, it's long-term storytelling. So
I just want to say,
I'm for it.
I just want to say that I called the John Cena heel turn after the Royal Rumble. and I put it in the team chat. You weren't part of it at that point, but I put it in the team chat. There was one line that Cena said in that press conference that went, "Yeah, it's happening," and he said, "It's best for business." It's best for business that I win the chamber. And I knew at that point, well, I didn't know at that point, but when The Rock came out and did this whole thing with Cody, you could work it out. It was going to be John Cena.
I mean, I wasn't convinced that it was going to happen. I wanted it to, but then again, I've been wanting to see the heel turn for about 15 to nearly 20 years. So I'm just glad it's finally happened, because I did, and no disrespect to Cena, as you know, I've never really been a big Cena fan. I used to love the Doctor of Thugonomics because he worked so well, but I wasn't invested in this Cena farewell tour. I was kind of like, give the man his flowers. He's been terrific for the company. He's done so many great things. And I was like, yeah, okay, he'll be gone at the end of the year, and that's it. No more Cena. Now he's turned heel, and we haven't heard from him yet since. And all this, I am so here for it. I'm so invested.
I'm not sure it's as straight cut as we think.
I don't think it is. I still think there's another twist, maybe another couple of twists and turns.
Well, I know. I don't think it's the end of the run. I think he's doing a punk. I think he's doing a punk, a Summer of Punk, Ring of Honor.
Could be, yeah.
But who knows? That's a different story. One of the things I just want to get one last thing before we wrap up this edition of Die Rocky Die.
Yeah.
In last week, we talked all about video games. And we talked all about that, and we did the review of 2K25. One of the things that came out of that was Showcase, and there's a line in Showcase where Paul Heyman goes, "For over 40 years, I've led the careers of the Inoue and the Johnsons," right? So the bloodline. How much of an influence, and this, I don't think this has ever been talked about, but how much of an influence was Paul Heyman on the career of Dwayne Johnson?
Obviously there is an aspect of that, because we've never really seen it on screen. That's one thing that we've never seen. But Paul Heyman has spoken before about his relationship with the Inoue family over generations, and I wouldn't be surprised if, when The Rock was younger and, in the positions that we spoke about, if he hadn't actually been in The Rock's ear, or The Rock maybe even spoke to Paul Heyman for some advice. I mean, I know things might have been a little different, because even though there was a brief I think it was 97, there was a brief little partnership between ECW and WWE. Obviously, Paul was running that. But I think as now... I mean, Paul Heyman is...
Paul Heyman.
All right, he's in the Hall of Fame, and rightly so. And it was amazing to be there to celebrate that and witness that. But I still don't think a lot of people realise just how important to the business Paul Heyman is and has been. That guy is probably deserving of more credit than a lot of people probably realise or is even talked about. He is one guy that a lot of people, doesn't matter how long they've been on the circuit for, look to for advice if they can get. You can get one piece of advice out of Paul Heyman, and that you want that piece of advice. Doesn't matter what it is. That man, his I think only one person can run things as good, if not better, than Triple H in a CEO capacity, and I think that would probably be Paul Heyman.
Oh, great.
But the fact that Paul Heyman is, as he said during the Hall of Fame and that last year, I'm a Paul Levesque guy. Where everyone keeps saying I'm a Paul Heyman guy, he said I'm a Paul Levesque guy, and he gave Triple H his props, and he's firmly on board. So when you got Triple H in his position, and you got his, all the guys he used to work with, that mostly were Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, for example, The Rock now being in his position, and you've got Paul Heyman all behind you and saying, "Look, we're here for you. Like, we're here for the company. We're here for you." Where under Vince, a lot of a lot of legends that were a little bit sort of, I don't know if I want to get involved. I don't know if I want to do this. Now it's kind of like, oh, well, if Triple H and the WWE call me and that, I'm there. You know, look at how many legends and that, like Demolition, for example, should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, didn't want to touch it because of Vince McMahon. And it's interesting now that Vince has been removed, how so many legends have come out and turned around and said, now that Vince McMahon's not a part of it and things have changed, I'm actually open to the idea of going into the Hall of Fame, to coming back to WWE to do some work, maybe discuss a Legends contract, things like that.
That's a whole show on its own.
It is, yeah.
I think. But I am going to use my favourite line that I've used throughout the entire thing. We will be doing a show on Paul Heyman in the near future. It is my
That'd be a great show, that one.
Stefan, we're going to wrap it up there for this week on this first part of Die Rocky Die. We could have talked for longer, but to be quite frank, I can barely string a sentence together. So we're going to finish it up for this week.
That night, 20,000 fans started chanting Rocky sucks.
Rocky sucks! Rocky sucks! Rocky sucks!
It was a sobering moment. Who is this guy in wrestling who's smiling when he's getting beat?
The respect is given when it's earned, and if they feel that I haven't earned their respect, that's fine. I'll accept that, and I will earn it.
A few weeks later, I got a call from the WWE, and I spoke to Vince McMahon. I said, when I come back and we go live, just give me one opportunity to get on the microphone and just say what I feel. A couple of weeks later, I came back. We were on live TV. I grabbed the microphone. Fans were already booing. They started chanting Rocky sucks.
In arenas across the country, I heard chants of Rocky sucks.
I am a lot of things,
But sucks isn't one of them.
in that moment, The Rock was born.
This has been Legends and Champions with Andy Evans. Thank you for listening.